Manitoba has a rich tradition of choral singing, and whether you are a chorister yourself or are just love choirs, the Manitoba Conservatory of Music and Arts has the course for you. They are offering a spring session of a course called Celebrating Choral Music. This is a course that will span the gamut of everything from the beauty of Renaissance polyphony from composers such as Palestrina to more modern choral composers such as Morton Lordson and others. The class takes place on March 31st and April 7th and can be enjoyed from the comfort of your own living room. Celebrating choral music will be taught by longtime broadcaster, music literature whiz, and friend to all of us here at Classic 107, Andrea Ratuski. And joining me here over Zoom is the great Andrea Ratuski. Hi, Andrea. It's great to see
Hi,
you again.
Chris. Well, it's wonderful to see you too, and you're very, very kind.
Mhm. It's so nice to chat. So this spring section of Celebrating Choral Music is actually round two for you. There was a session that took place at the end of November, beginning of December. My first question is, how did that first session go?
Oh, it was fabulous. There was a wonderful inscription because, as you say, people are missing choral music. And November, December, of course, people were missing singing in their choirs around the Christmas season or in their church choirs. There were no Christmas concerts. So people flocked to the course. And so that was wonderful. And so we had one class of general choral music and another one really focused on Christmas. So I hope people enjoyed it. And so I hope we'll have the same people back for this second round, the spring edition, shall we say.
Mhm. So the course happens on March 31st and April 7th, and each class is 2 hours long. I'm going to ask the same question Simon asked when he was chatting with you. Where do you start? I mean, you got 4 hours to go the gamut from Palestrina to 20th century composers. Where do you start?
You know, I come up with a list and I've been thinking about this for the past few months. And so I just have this running list going and I just keep adding ideas to this long list of pieces. This time I'm actually going to start with Palestrina just and the Pope Marcellus Mass and this like classic Renaissance polyphony, partly because this kind of music by Palestrina, this polyphony, was the inspiration for so much sacred music after that. And so that's where I'm going to begin. It's not going to be chronological, so it'll go by, feel and energy and mood. But the first class will be more oriented. It's coming up just before Easter, just before Good Friday. So we're going to have some requiems by Mozart and the German Requiem by Brahms and other music along those lines.
Mhm. So I know in our correspondence you were talking about springy pieces. Do you have any? I mean, this past weekend was the first day of spring. Is there any springy music in the course?
Yes, as a matter of fact, there's a delightful piece by the Danish composer Carl Nielsen. It's called "Springtime in Funen." Not
Mhm.
that well known, so I'm hoping that people will be have their ears perked up by some pieces that they are less familiar with. And the Lobgesang that we were talking about by Mendelssohn, Hymn of Praise, also known as his.
The Second Symphony, yeah.
Yes, yes. And because the second class is coming just after Easter, we'll have part of the Resurrection Symphony by Gustav Mahler, the choral finale, which is just so uplifting.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just magnificent to listen to. And a lot of the music we have on YouTube, so they're video performances. And so, for example, the Resurrection Symphony, we've got Sir Simon Rattle conducting. It is just so amazing to watch him because he's just so emotional and he just gets into the music so much. So that's really great. Also, there's a composer that I was introduced thanks to Classic 107, and it's this composer, Ola Gjeilo.
Yeah.
And so I've got a piece called Sunrise by him, and it's just exquisite. So that'll be a real treat as well.
Yeah, I had a privilege of meeting Ole Elo and actually
Gjeilo.
interviewing him, and he's Great guy, and yeah, his choral music is great. He did a concert here a couple of years ago with Winnipeg Singers, I think, at the
Mhm.
Westminster United. It was just his music is you have to hear it. The course, as you were saying, spans over the Easter weekend. When I think of Easter, the first thing I think of is passion settings. Are you going to be touching on any of the passion settings?
Yes, the St. Matthew Passion by Bach, one of the most powerful and gripping pieces in all music, and that's telling the Passion of Christ leading up to the crucifixion, music that would have been typically performed on Good Friday. I should say though that there's going to be a lot of music oriented around requiems, passions leading up to Easter, but I should say it's not all going to be dolorosa and
Yeah.
sad. It's putting together this class. I was just brought to tears over and over again because the music is just so beautiful and just powerful, and so yeah, so full of emotion. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, you mentioned the final movement to Mahler too. I mean, you don't get any more uplifting than that final
Right.
section. That's for sure. And
Right.
the Missa Pepe Marcelli by Palestrina is at times can be just absolutely stunningly beautiful and uplifting as
Yes, yes.
well.
Yeah, yeah. And then I've got a few other fun things like the Barber Adagio is originally written for strings, but there's a version for chorus. And so that will also be lovely. And then Elgar, he's best known for his Enigma variations and the movement called Nimrod. Everybody knows it, but there's a choral version of that as well, the Lux Aeterna. And in fact, the text, Lux Aeterna, appears in the Requiem Mass.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. That's amazing. So you were talking about this before. You're going to be presenting a lot of this material over Zoom. What other advantages are there to presenting the material over Zoom?
Well, as you mentioned, people can listen from the comfort of their own home. So there's the advantage of not having to park and that kind of thing. And it's in the evening, and so you can just relax with your cup of tea or your favorite beverage or a snack or whatever you like. And so I think it's the comfort aspect of it. And frankly, I've been finding that I do this in a PowerPoint presentation, the videos, if people can hook up their computer to their large screen TV, then that's even better because you get the full effect of the music, through your own sound system and your video. So that can be really pleasurable as well. And I have found that I don't feel the presentation is compromised in any way by not being live, because it's still a PowerPoint. It's true, there's the odd technical glitch, but we all try and and work through that
Right.
and press onwards. Yeah.
And I think one of the things I really enjoy about watching Zoom performances is there's very often close-ups of soloists and whether it be a choir member or orchestra member or even conductor.
Yeah.
It's always great to see.
The videography is just so great these days. And so if you're in a concert hall listening to music, well, you've got your orchestra and your choir, but in these video versions, the cameramen are like, they know exactly what they're doing. So when there's a flute solo, you're watching the flute. And when there's a horn solo, you're watching the French horn. So I find that it makes the music much more meaningful,
Right.
actually.
Yeah,
Mm.
because it's almost like it's almost like being there.
Yes.
So
Mm.
the course is 2 Wednesdays. How much is it
Uh,
to register?
it's $25 a class, so that's fifty
Mhm.
dollars And so you can contact mcma.ca, the Manitoba Conservatory of Music and Arts,
Right.
to sign up. And you can phone as well.
And for all our Classic 107 listeners out there, if you go to classic107.com, I'll embed a direct link to the registration page on the Manitoba Conservatory of Music and Arts website. So just click on that; it'll take you right there.
Okay.
Andrea, it's been so great to chat with you and catch up. I understand you've got
Been a pleasure.
a piece of music that you can set up for us. So you want to?
Yes. Okay. So the Mozart Requiem, one of the great requiems ever written. So Mozart's Requiem famously left incomplete at his death. He died at the tender age of 35. And it's actually the first CD I ever owned. My father bought me my very first compact disc, and it was the Mozart Requiem. And the piece, I mean, for those people who watched the movie Amadeus way back when, might have been led to believe that Salieri murdered Mozart, but of course we know that wasn't true. But in
Mm.
fact, the Requiem is just shrouded in legend and stories, some of which are true and some of which aren't. But like the commission, the way it all came about, a mysterious man came knocking at the door wearing a gray cloak, and he was unidentified, and he commissioned the Requiem from Mozart. And so later we discovered that it was a Count Walsegg who commissioned it. And so he sent his servant to actually make the commission. But this, he was kind of a fishy character, this count. His wife had died, and he wanted to have a requiem mass, and so he wanted Mozart to write it, but then he intended to pass it off as his own composition.
Oh,
So anyway, Mozart wanted to write the piece, and so he set upon it quite furiously. And he was a little bit obsessed too about this man in the gray cloak. But then he fell ill, and it was November 20th. He went to his bed and never got out, basically, but just kept on writing, and sometimes late into the night. And then he was growing weaker and weaker, and he completed some movements. He worked on basically 7 out of 12, but left sketches for the rest. And not all of the 7 were completed. But on December the 4th, some of his friends came over, and they did a kind of a, I guess you could call it a mini performance of what was written that far. And Mozart himself played viola. But then he just grew more and more ill. And that night, shortly after midnight, well, the doctors were called, and he passed away that night. So
mm,
that's the story of it. And so the piece I wanted us to play is the Lacrimosa, which is one of the last pieces that he was working on. And it's just such a beautiful piece. Lacrimosa refers to tears. And so when you listen to the piece, I mean, you can just hear the
right.
weeping in the music, and it's just so soft and just full of pathos.
Sounds amazing. Let's hear it. Andrea, thanks again.
Thank you, Chris.